You're listening to Inside Out of Paranormal UK Radio Network.
December the 1st, 2018 will see issue 17 of Outer Limits magazine published. Have you subscribed yet? If not, you'll be missing out on the following. Madam Mig passes away. MJ12 hoax? Is real evidence being hidden? Why UFOs could not be entirely explained by human technology. 2 lots of photographic evidence are examined. We revisit a classic UFO encounter from Greece. 100 years after the armistice, we take a look at the Angel of Mons. A real-life abduction case in They Came in the Night. The Greys revealed. Peter Robbins remembers art, life and UFOs, and he thinks about Bud Hopkins. Life on Mars? The Road to Pascagoula, a research strip from 1981, which is a review of this classic abduction with new, never-before-heard information. The Kerry Island UFO from Ireland in November 2018 will bring you the latest information on the new case. Subscribe now and do not miss out. £9 a year for UK or $12 for US plus a PayPal fee for 6 issues a year. Subscribe at the magazine website chris0597.wixsite.com/outer-limits-mag. Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Inside Outer Limits, where I'm happy to once again be speaking with my friend Phillip Mantle. How are you, Phil?
Good evening, Chris. I'm a hunky-dory, mate. It's been a good day.
Good.
It didn't start off so clever, but as it's gone on, it's got better and better.
Absolutely brilliant. Now, mine's gone not too bad as well. I've actually just got myself a job for early in January, so I'm quite happy with that. It means I've got some money coming in. Okay, so a few weeks ago we interviewed Spyros regarding the Alien Autopsy footage. Now, if you don't know what the Alien Autopsy footage is, ladies and gentlemen, I suggest you do a little bit of Google in and see if you can find the information for yourselves. Now, a gentleman by the name of Colin Woolford has actually... He disagrees with Spyros's interpretation of the footage, shall we say. And so what we've done today, we've invited both Spyros back to speak with us, and also we've invited Colin Woolford. Now, this should be an interesting discussion, Phil.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm well known for my involvement in the Alien Autopsy film that came out in 1995. So, I'll be ringmaster jointly with you, Chris, and I'm sure we're going to have an interesting discussion.
Good. Now, what we've decided to do, dear listeners, is we're giving each person approximately 5 minutes to discuss why they think, without any interruption, why they think that the footage is right or the footage is wrong. And what we're going to do is go alphabetically in this case. That means we're inviting Colin Woolford first to present his 5 minutes and just let us know why he thinks it's real. So it's over to you, Colin, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me here, and hello to Philip and Mr. Mallory. So I want to wish everyone a happy Hanukkah, because it's Hanukkah, start of Hanukkah today. So I just wanted to say that. But well, basically, yeah, I'm Colin Woolford. I'm a UFO researcher, 28 years, and I just like to make it clear that I am of the opinion that the AA and debris footage are genuine. As this is taken from my Facebook page, which I've run now for about 3 years on Facebook, the Alien Autopsy analysis page. And this incident should not be confused with the more famous Roswell crash or crashes, which are believed to have come down in early July, but was of another crash that took place at Nogle Canyon, Socorro, New Mexico, on May 31st, 1947, as per the cameraman's statement. Now, I believe there is an ongoing conspiracy to conceal the truth on this matter, and further to that, I have prepared a statement, and it is that I believe Ray Santilli was in Cleveland, Ohio in July 1992, and that he was shown by a former military cameraman footage of an alien autopsy. I believe this was either confiscated or stolen by authorities in the period between May and August 1995, and was the reason he could not supply the original film for testing, although I do believe there is some truth that he did have some initial testing done. We can talk about that later. I believe he had his he and his team had transferred quite a bit of this footage to videotape and to Betacam. Too many people had seen it. More importantly, a number of ufologists had seen it, such as Phillip, who's in the studio there. The cat was out of the bag to some extent. Ray became more cagey over demands to verify it, but he could not do so due to threats to him and no doubt his family, in my opinion. After the heat had died down and the research proving inconclusive, a cover story was inserted. Now, some 11 years later, a propaganda documentary called Eamon Investigates, a motion picture film, Alien Autopsy, starring Anton Deck, were released in the same week of April 2006. People who weren't there had now been inserted into the narrative, and Ray was made to say it was a recreation with a few real frames that had survived oxidization. In 2007, Mr. Molaris, who's also in the studio, was inserted into the narrative as the kingpin and the man whose team had hoaxed it. The intention being that Ray's ludicrous claim of it being a recreation with, I think he said it was possibly 5% of original film, real film frames, of which he didn't know where they were, would more easily convince people that it was all a hoax, as per Mr. Molaris's claim a year later. In exchange for agreeing to this new version of the story, Ray and Gary would have been suitably compensated, as well as being paid to be executive producers for the Anton Deck disinformation film. How much of this was through coercion and threats rather than greed, or indeed both, remains to be seen. What should be made clear in closing is that Ray and Gary are clearly not innocent of charges of deceiving the public, because as of 2001, therefore, anything they have said since then should be treated with the utmost scepticism and suspicion, especially when it seems to back up the hoax narrative of Mr. Molaris. Let it be clear, then, that this is a conspiracy perpetuated by groups with knowledge and access to the film and materials. This explains what some consider the best evidence for a hoax in the form of restored images of the debris footage. The lack of evidence for Mr. Molaris over what has now been 11 years since coming forward should be viewed with the utmost of suspicion. His far-fetched stories, claims of making not one penny while Ray made 15 million are laughable, as are his recent slurs about Ray regarding the death of Princess Diana. Gareth Watson is not the man behind the viewing window. Greg Simmons is not the man holding the debris. Both of these can be proved. The first autopsy film does not have an incorrect medical procedure, and John Humphreys did not make the alien. More eyewitnesses have claimed to see the alien autopsy footage, or at least other segments of it, before it was supposedly made, than those that say they were part of Mr. Molaris' team. Petroglyphs of six-fingered beings have been found in our past history, recorded by our ancestors. There were 6 children who witnessed on May 31st, 1947, the crash southwest of Socorro, and 2 of these went on to view the recovery. Their account exactly matches that from the cameraman's statement.
Okay.
The two, and last line, that these 2 alien autopsy films are real, along with the debris footage. Possible footage of the recovery of the vehicle and that showing the President Truman may also be in Ray's position. We may never know for sure. But one thing I am sure of is that this was covered up and there is an ongoing conspiracy behind the reality of the footage.
Okay, Colin,
Thank you.
You've had just slightly over the 5 minutes there, because I think you made my timer go off.
I wonder what I thought it was your personal.
Yeah, unfortunately it was this going off and I didn't get to it in time just to shut it off. But thank you very much for that. It's much appreciated. Right. Now we're going to hand over to Spyros to give him his slightly over 5 minutes if he wants that, just to put his point of view across. So it's over to you, Spyros. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Okay, my position is very straightforward. It's never changed since the beginning. I met Ray Santilli in early 1995. and it was either suggested to him that I could make an Alien Autopsy film for him properly. He had already showed me a very bad mock-up of a supposed Alien Autopsy, which we now know to be the tent footage. And we know that's a fake. It's been admitted by the people up in Milton Keynes at AK Music that they made that footage. So that's never been in contestant. But what must be important here is that Santilli did present that film as real in the early stages. And it wasn't until I pointed out to him that it isn't real and why it's not real that he backed out of that. And I think there's lots of evidence to show that lots of people that were shown it as real believed that that's what his intentions were. Furthermore, when I suggested that I'd make a proper film for him, he was interested, but was concerned that it would stand up to scrutiny. So my initial target was to make a film which would stand up to scrutiny. I knew that I had to do it in total secrecy, so I put together a very tight team made up of one of my best friends, John Humphreys, who at the time was a special effects expert, but is a traditional sculptor, a Royal Academy award sculptor and lecturer. He's more than qualified to make the alien that we see in the AA footage. Be that as it may, the other people that I had that I involved were very close to me: my girlfriend, my brother, and my business partner, Greg Simmons. The only people that had access to Ray Santilli at that time was myself and Greg Simmons. No one else had access to Ray. Greg would look after the finances. He would take money to pay for props and for materials and anything else that might be needed. And I was basically reporting back to Ray as to what we were doing, how we were doing it, when it would be delivered. I got the feeling that Ray was up against the cosh in terms of time. He needed the footage urgently because he promised it to so many people. And on that basis and that basis alone, we had to do this in a very, very short space of time. I'd like to emphasize at this point also that my commission with Ray was to make an Alien Autopsy. He did not ask me at any point to make the debris footage. That came from me personally because I fancied doing it. We did that at exactly the same time in the same room in a house in Camden in London. The most important part about this whole situation is that Ray had been touting an Alien Autopsy since 1993. There's evidence of lots of people having been told that he had an Alien Autopsy in 1993. No one was shown anything other than the tent footage, right up to 1995. If there's anybody out there that's seen anything other than tent footage, they need to step forward. I've not found a single one. I doubt that you will either, Colin, but be that as it may, that's the situation. The tent footage was the first thing seen, and the second thing seen was the Alien Autopsy that I created in 1995. Mr. Santilli registered a copyright with the Copyright Office in America for an Alien Autopsy which was supposedly made in 1947, and that registration was made in 1995, which was after I had made the footage. The question, of course, would be why he didn't register it earlier than that if he had it from 1993. We will never know the answer to that question, but it does point a big finger towards the 1995 timeline. The other big question that we must also consider is that he says that there was original film, and that we made that film from the images of an existing film. It's documented that Ray Santilli did not meet John Humphreys until after the Alien was made. The only contact John had with what the image looked like was my personal drawings that I gave to him. Just to wind up, the images that are supposedly real are supposed to be inside a fake film that I made. This is an admission that Santilli has already put out there, but he cannot tell us where those frames are. Okay, and I'll leave that here, and we can talk from here on.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, Spyros. Okay, now what I'll propose, gentlemen, is that we allow Colin to ask some questions of both of you, and if he wants to do that, and if you want to answer them, guys, that's fine. Then we'll reverse that, and Spyros can ask questions of both Philip and Colin, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. What I'd like to do is just clarify a couple of things that both gentlemen have said. Colin pointed out that Ray Santilli had been in Cleveland, Ohio in 1992. That indeed is correct. A lot of people think it was 1993, but it wasn't. It was 1992. And evidence to support that is in the form, I believe it was the Daily Mirror, ran an article about Ray going out to Cleveland, and Ray was talking excitedly about some of his acquisitions there, which were music-related memorabilia. I believe it was Elvis-related. No mention of the Alien Autopsy, of course. So Colin is spot on with that. Not many people have realised that. As for Spyros, on the other hand, what I can say as well to support what he said is we'll start the ball rolling, not taking sides, is that when all of us were first invited to view any footage, that's myself, Colin Andrews, Maurizio Baiata from Italy, maybe one or two others, the first film that was shown was the tent footage, and it was shown as being the genuine article, and that piece of footage was also sold as part of a package to Fox, and it was later withdrawn. So again, just to start the ball rolling, both gentlemen's opening statement is indeed correct.
Okay, that's brilliant.
I have seen that newspaper article about Ray in 1992, and I have been in Ray's office viewing the tent footage, a copy of which he gave me, by the way, which I still have on VHS here today. So there we go.
Okay, so over to you then, Colin. If you'd like to start the ball rolling, that'd be brilliant.
Well, I guess I'd just maybe talk about a couple of things that was said, like I think Mr. Molaris was saying
Colin,
about
please call me Spyros.
Oh, Spyros. Sorry. Okay, for Spyros. I think he was saying that Ray was talking about, and he was talking about the Alien Autopsy back in '93, but his story is that obviously he didn't get the funds till November 1994. So he claims that footage came over to London Heathrow, I would imagine. So he wouldn't have been able to register it until actually he would have physically had it in his hands. So I don't think he could have claimed that he actually had the stuff in his hands. He wouldn't be registering it any time before then. Going back to the tent footage, I think that the claim is that it was in the summer of Ray approached Arc Music and Keith Bateman in the summer of '94, and this may have been a stopgap because he was trying to procure the funds and get funding, however much it was, to the cameraman, and he claims that there was up to a year where he didn't talk to the cameraman. So it was eventually. The tent footage itself seems very strange. I think Ray tells a story about how when he was transferring the film originally, that this piece of footage ended up as being claimed to have been retrieved from the actual footage itself. And I think this is what caused a lot of confusion at the time, that Ray actually did believe that these images, because there was supposedly 22 reels, if you believe what Ray was saying, and that some of these images had come from the original canisters, and Ray claims that he himself actually showed it to the cameraman and he couldn't quite place it. But I just wonder, I think, if that was an early attempt at some disinfo there, by a bit of skullduggery going on behind the scenes. And I think the idea that Ray actually gave this footage any credibility would be, I don't think how anyone can see that and say that they could give that footage any credibility.
Okay.
And
Colin?
Yeah, sure.
May I just interject a minute, please? There?
Yeah, sure.
Are you familiar with the footage? There have been some frames of the tent footage where a sign was inserted in one version after the event. Have you seen that?
Is that the sort of security code?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yes. Yeah.
I've heard about it.
Why would Ray, having realised this is not the right film, why would he then have them insert a fake sign into what would have been a real film in his mind?
No idea.
So I think we can establish that some skullduggery was going on in the Santilli camp at that point.
Well, but who? But were they being manipulated from outside? Were there outside agencies? Who was transferring the film? And this is another interesting question. Why were they?
If there was an outside agency involved at this point, in this juncture, why did they allow the AA footage? If it was real, why would they allow it to be released in the Fox program when they were involved so early on? Because the Fox program basically said, "Look, this is real." That's how it pointed.
I think that was the whole point I'm making. That Ray, I think, was under the impression that this had actually come from the same batch of canisters that he'd got over from America, and he was under the impression that, I can give you the quote itself because I've got it from my lecture.
No, I'm familiar with the quote. I'm familiar with the quote.
Right.
But the point I'm making is that let's suppose that he did think it was part of a batch that came from America. Let's suppose that's true, okay, for a second. At the point that he discovered that it isn't, why would he then have them add a sign to that footage if he wasn't just trying to pull out the wool over the eyes of the viewer?
It may be that he was, like I say, it could have been a stopgap. He was trying to recreate it to the best of his ability, and up to that point. So I think this happened in, according to the notes, it happened in the summer of 1994. So maybe he was trying to see if they could recreate it to such a level of what he had seen in Ohio 2 years before. So maybe he was trying to see whether he could fool other people into the, how convincing it was.
I can accept that, but if we do accept that, then what we're saying is what he saw is the tent footage, not the autopsy footage that I created, because they're so different. How could he recreate what he says he saw if it's a different image?
But he was, I don't think he had seen all the 22 canisters of film, to be honest with you. So it could be that this was another piece from an alleged tent set up at the debris site or something like that. But
so basically what you're saying is that he saw the tent footage, but he never actually received it ever, but he did try to recreate it.
I think that he wanted to see if someone could. Maybe he had his doubts about the footage himself. Maybe, he wasn't a ufologist, was he? He was just, an entrepreneur, record person who wanted to make some money. But, maybe he thought he was being had by someone. Maybe he thought he was being had by the cameraman himself. Maybe he thought that, well, if I can reproduce something like that, then, maybe he had his doubts. I think he had his doubts. But Chris.
Yep.
Can we please make a note, just for the record, that we've established that Mr. Santilli is of the mind of creating fake footage. Just for the record, for the time.
Yeah, I can put that down. I can write that down for you. Yeah.
Because if we agree with what we just said, he is now somebody who is capable of faking some footage. That's all we need to know for the time being.
Can do that.
Please carry on, Colin.
Well, I think, it's very interesting what Keith Bateman's statement is. There was lots of strange things going on. It all depends, obviously, if you believe that Spyros is telling the truth, or, it was actually genuine, an autopsy film from 1947, because Keith Bateman was saying that when the footage was released, we suspected our phones were being tapped, and there was a night, he said, when the alarm system went off, and things had been touched, but later realised files had been disturbed and tapes moved. And he also claims that Santilli had told him that he had been asked quite a few questions from certain authorities, and that there had been break-ins and things like that. And if this is all a hoax, then why are these things happening?
Is it fair to say?
Can I just interject there? Yeah. When it comes to claims made by Ray Santilli, he made quite a large number of them. The ones that were being able to be verified all turned out to be false. For example, he claimed to have shown the film to a number of religious leaders. When asked whom, he gave the names and the location, proved to be false. He gave the name and location of where the film was allegedly processed. When they were contacted, that proved to be false. In reality, with the greatest respect to both gentlemen here, neither of you, I believe, have met Keith Bateman and interviewed him in person, because myself and Russell Callahan have done. And Keith has told the full story of the Alien Autopsy, tent footage section of it, and how he made it upon the request of Ray Santilli. No thoughts of recreating anything. And if you'd speak to him now, he would go on the record and tell you the whole story. So, what is clear from my point of view, whether you believe the temp footage was real or fake doesn't really make any difference at the moment. But that was the piece of film that Ray Santilli used as bait. He did it with me and others, and I believe yourself also, Spyros. That was the first thing you were shown.
It's the very first thing he showed me, yes.
Yeah, and it wasn't until Ray employed a gentleman called Chris Carey that things started to change. One of the only, when you talk about the Ant and Dec movie, Colin, there's a couple of things in there really that are the only true parts. One is how they winged it, which is exactly what they did, and how much money they were making, not in piles of cash like they're shown in the movie. Chris Carey was brought in to steady the ship and also do the contracts. Now, Chris Carey knew that I had a copy of the tent footage, and he wasn't happy about it. He even asked for it to be returned, and I declined. At a conference in San Marino, where we first showed some of the stills from the film, I, in private, arranged a viewing of the tent footage. And Mr. Carey and I almost came to blows because he didn't want anyone to see it. And if it wasn't have been for my wife, I might, things may have actually come to blows that night. So, like I say, the tent footage and how it came to be is well documented. And I think we should move on from that because, with respect, Spyros had no part in that. Wasn't involved, has never claimed to be involved in it. And but can we take it from there, gentlemen, please?
But it is worth mentioning, Philip, that Ray did contact you in 1993. Is that correct?
He did. Ray wrote to me, not to me personally. He wrote to Bufora in 1993. And as it was a letter concerning a possible documentary, it was passed on to me as I was their press officer. And when I initially spoke to Ray, he was very vague about what he was looking at. He talked about a very general documentary, and he was looking to see what Bufora could supply. If we had any images, stock images, film footage, etc. I replied in writing, and then we spoke. And eventually he told me that he had this Roswell footage, so I obviously pressed him on it. I met him for the first time at the London Business School near Regent's Park, I believe. Not that far from Ray's offices, actually. We were hosting an evening with Travis Walton and Mike Rogers for the release of Fire in the Sky, and I invited Ray along. And he told me that he got this film, not that he was getting it, not that it was on the way, not that he was waiting for the money, that he actually had it. And it was a Roswell. He didn't go into any great detail. He just said an alien autopsy. So there was no real description of the film. So obviously, I challenged him, show me it. And this went on, yes, I can, no, I can. He gave various excuses. And I basically said, it's just another, fantastical story. And then in early 1995, I received a VHS copy in the mail of Roswell the movie for review. It was a small release in the UK. And now Ray had given me his business card when I met him. And so I just thought, I wonder if that Santilli chap still claims to have this footage. So I rang him up. Yes, I do. But I said, show me it. He said, you don't believe me, Philip. I said, I can't believe you until you show me. And he said, make an appointment and come and see it. So my wife and I went down there. At first he showed us the tent footage. That's all he showed us. And a copy he gave me, which I still have here. Over the ensuing months, the next few months, he showed us both autopsy film and the debris film. And the rest, as they say, is history.
The point is, though, I mean, surely he wouldn't be discussing something about a film that Spyros was not going to make till April 95, a couple of years before, because he'd have to be pretty confident that he had something that could match up to an alien autopsy. It just seems very unlikely that he would spend 2 years before, discussing it with you and before it had even been made.
Well, you can assume what you like. Neither of us will know Ray's confidence or not at that stage. All I can tell you is what happened. I can't look inside Ray's head and see what he was planning or not planning or what ideas he had. What I did find from my interview with the others that were involved in the tent footage was that they had a great sense of humour. They were Jack the lads. They played pranks. They would have silly ideas, zany ideas of how they could make their next project. And it was out of that the Alien Autopsy was born. So Ray was amongst that. They told me they used to go to the film festival in France every year, and they would hire a car to get from the airport and back and shuttle themselves around, and they would literally race back to the airport, and they would do all kinds of silly things. I mean, Keith Bateman once, for example, asked me, he says, just ask Ray Santilli about the toilet roll up his exhaust pipe, and that was one of the stunts they pulled, So, that's one of the advantages of speaking to these people in person. I can't look inside Ray's head. I don't know what he was planning or he was thinking. All I can tell you is what happened.
May I share something with you? Because I'm in quite a unique position, because I was both in the situation you was in, Philip, and then I became the person that Ray was employing, right? So first of all, he told me all the stories about the alien autopsy having been real, and he's bought it from this guy in America, and blah blah blah. I got all of that story, okay? And although I thought he was mad, I still thought, you know what? Let's see the image. Let's see what he's talking about. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. When I saw the tent footage, I realised it was a fake. I noticed from his body language that he tried it on and he failed. And at that point, my role changed from being the guy being conned to the guy making the con. Okay? So I've seen both sides of the fence, and I see how the man operates. Now, what I can tell you about Ray is very simple. He will create a situation. For example, he had me make a Beatles program once. Okay, it's out there somewhere, and it was made of news footage, Beatles news footage. And the idea was, can we put a sound-alike band onto a Beatles tape with images of the Beatles in news footage, which is copyright-free, and sell it? Is there a market for it? So what Ray did was he started telling distributors that this program already existed and would they be interested in buying it. Now, it wasn't in existence. We had to create it. But he wasn't going to spend the money and find out nobody wanted to buy it. So until he got somebody bite the hook, he didn't make it. Okay, exactly the same MO as the Alien Autopsy. Is there a market for it before we spend the money? So when he walked around telling people he already had it, it was a kind of a let's test the waters and see. Now I'd like to ask Colin a couple of questions, if he can give maybe shine a light on a couple of issues that I have. Okay.
Okay, are you okay with that, Colin?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, let me just. I don't want to put words into your mouth. I want to just understand your position. Okay. Are you saying? Is it true? Is it correct that you're saying that I am some way being paid by government officials to tell lies about a film which is real? Is that your position?
Yeah, I don't think you'd be doing it for nothing.
Okay, good. So okay, so that's fine. That's fine. So okay, so what we're saying here is the film is real, based on information we've got from Ray Santilli. Yes.
Yeah, and other people.
Okay. Well, those other people, are they somebody we can talk to, or are they just who are?
Well, like Mike Maloney, I guess, and some.
Okay, Mike Maloney, hearsay. Okay, it's a story. No evidence, absolutely no evidence at all. Absolutely no evidence.
A bit like you then.
No, I'm going to give you some evidence. Okay, this is what
excuse me, gentlemen, could I interject there?
Yes.
No, I've met Mike Maloney and interviewed him in person.
Okay.
And there is a connection between evidence, I'll call it evidence, between Mike and yourself, Spyros.
Okay.
Because I can't say that Mike Maloney witnessed what he claims to witness. What I can say, because he showed me, as did you, he showed me the event in his diary. So Mike is one of those gentlemen who keeps diaries of his appointments. For those that are not aware, Mike Maloney was an award-winning press photographer. And at some point, I don't remember the year, he was sent out to Disney to cover some new movies they were releasing. And through his connections with Disney, he's claimed at a secret meeting they were shown UFO films, real, and something similar. They're not the same as the Alien Autopsy.
That's very important, Philip.
Yeah. And he did note it in his diary, which he showed me.
1978.
Yeah, similarly, Spyros, when I was at your home looking at the documentary evidence you have, one of the things that you produced was your diary with your various meetings, therefore detailed in. So I'm not saying, my story is real or fake. What I'm saying is he did go to Disney and did have that meeting.
Yes, I don't dispute that. What I do dispute is the bit where he said that the images that he saw were identical to my film.
But he didn't say that, though.
Okay, it's good. That's excellent.
He said they were similar. And, of course, Mike Maloney was one of a handful of people who only came forward after the event. I have no record of Mike talking about this prior to the Alien Autopsy being on TV.
So we can establish this, right? Let's be fair to Mike, okay? He saw something, but we don't know what he saw is my film. That's fair, isn't it?
I think it's absolutely fair. Yes, he said it was similar, but he said there were some major differences.
Okay, that could be true. Okay, I can live with that. I can live with that. But the thing is, it doesn't actually put my film in that time frame or in that picture at all. The same as when Clifford Stone said that he saw my film in 1969. Actually, that can't be possible. And now I'm the one that knows this because I made it. Now you don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe me, okay? Because we're going to use other things that will prove it. But for the time being, I can tell you that categorically, without a shadow of a doubt, I'm telling you, and he can sue me. I'm telling you, Clifford Stone lied, okay? Because when I asked him to his face, did the footage you see, was it like this footage or was it exactly the same? He said it was identical. That tells me everything I need to know. But let's move on to evidence. Let's move on to evidence because that's something we're craving for. Okay. Ray Santilli's rhetoric is that there was an original film and that we copied that original film. Okay. Now, have you changed your standpoint, Colin, to say that I was involved in making a fake film, or are you saying I wasn't involved ever?
I'm saying he wasn't involved ever. And
okay, great. Yeah. That's what I thought you said. Okay. Well, Ray himself has admitted that I was involved, as has John. On record.
Yeah, but this is what I said in my statement about, how things changed in 2006. That's why I no longer, I view everything he says as very suspicious. And like I say, I think they.
May I read you?
Can I just interject there?
Sure.
I'll let you read that, but that's no problem. But I made a note on my pad. I think when Colin mentions 2006, he's talking about the Ant and Dec film.
And the documentary.
The documentary that came out with
Is that the Amen investigates Alien Autopsy? Right,
well, What is the point is, we knew about Spyros prior to the Ant and Dec movie. John Humphreys had been in negotiations with US TV producer Bob Kiviat. A gentleman who used the name of Simon contacted us a couple of years before that. And initially, this was on email, asked if there was any interest still in the Alien Autopsy film. My article had been on the front cover of UFO magazine and he'd seen that. And I said yes. He went on to tell me that he was a very good friend of someone that was involved in it. We met Simon, myself and a gentleman, a colleague called Tim Matthews in Manchester. And he went on to give us enough information, not deliberately. He didn't tell us John Humphrey's name, but give us enough information, and we discovered who he was talking about. That was John Humphreys. We contacted him, myself and Bob Kiviat, and he was in contact with Bob. During that conversation with Bob, I don't know if this was email or on the phone, he made the statement, it's Spyros you need to speak to. Not Spyros Malaris, but he just said Spyros. So myself and Tim and Bob Kiviat were looking for somebody called Spyros, which if you Google Spyros, it doesn't come up and provide you with a lot of evidence. Back in, I think it was 2004. So, we already knew there was a Spyros involved long before the Ant and Dec film and the subsequent accompanying documentary. So I just thought I'd put that on the record. Please carry on, Spyros. Sorry.
Okay. I did send both Chris and Phillip an email exchange that I had with Ray Santilli, which was on 13th October in 2018. Oh, sorry, 2016. Sorry, 2016. And that was straight after the World's Greatest Hoaxes TV program that Bruce Burgess produced. I was very upset with Bruce Burgess because he assured me that he would not be even interviewing Ray Santilli in that program because I wasn't happy to perpetuate the idea that there was real frames in my film. Okay. So what happened was he did interview Ray Santilli, and Ray Santilli got the opportunity to say, and it was the last thing that would happen, that The film was, he calls it a restoration. I'm not sure whether or not that's because he doesn't understand what the word means, or whether it's because it's fudgy enough to get away with using it. A restoration isn't what it is. If it's a reproduction, then I can get what he's saying. But he's saying it's a restoration. And the reason he said that was because he kind of sees, an artist painting on a piece of canvas, and where the painting has faded, somebody's painted on top of it. Okay. Well, that hasn't happened. That's not how you can't do that with film. So I don't know what he means by that. But regardless, I wrote to Ray and I said, I feel that I was stitched up because Bruce Burgess assured me he wasn't even speaking to Santilli, and it turns out Santilli got more of a say in the program than I did, and I felt that Santilli was instrumental to that. Ray's answer, and I won't go through the whole text, but I'll just read you a bit that's important for what we're talking about here. He says, Spiz, I didn't make the show. I did not interview. John and I didn't know what they filmed with you. Overall, show seemed well balanced, and the one message is that a brilliant team worked in the project. Team that should be working together now. I thought you had the best say. I won't say what he says next, because it's about Nick Pope. And then I'll go on to the next bit, which is the final bit, which is we should be working together in progressing the AA beyond the film of 1995. I don't know what that means. Can you explain that to me, please, Colin?
Well, this totally confirms what I said in my opening statement, that as of 2006, he had been coerced into changing the narrative, and that's why it gave your story coming.
But my point is that if I wasn't involved, why would he say that I was... let me just go back. I don't want to paraphrase in any way. That a brilliant team worked in the project, team that should be working together now. We should be working together in progressing the AA. What does he mean by that? Clearly, I was part of the team, yes?
But this is no different to what he was saying in Aim and Investigates, that, the team was being, was set up and everything. So there's no difference between what he's saying there and 2006.
Okay, so are you saying he's lying there?
I'm saying that he's lying, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Evers, could you please just note down that, again, that Mr. Santilli is capable of lying? Okay, let's just write that down as well, because we need to do this systematically. Okay.
Whether for, threats or coercion or money, who knows? But,
yeah, okay. Mr. Santilli said that there are some real frames among the film that I made.
Yeah, what a ludicrous thing to say.
No, did he say that or didn't he?
No, I agree. I mean, that's why he got no. That's why he had no. That's why that program was,
Okay.
That's why it was all hilarious, but no one could take that seriously because he couldn't even remember where the frames were in the actual.
No, he couldn't remember because they don't exist. But this is the thing that I did. Okay, what I did was I asked him publicly to please show us where these frames are, so we can establish which is real and which isn't. He never replied. Then what I did was I asked if there are real frames within the film, then somebody must have edited them in, because I edited the entire thing and I don't know of any real film. So surely somebody else must have edited it in. Okay. And he gave the name of Frank Salas at Canon Video. Is that correct, Phil?
Yes.
Okay, so I then text Ray, and I asked him, do you know who Frank Salas is? And he says, no, we'll check emails and report back. Okay, this is a text that I've sent to Phil and to Chris, okay? I said he claims to have transferred the AA film to beta and VHS. Ray then replied, no idea who he is. Okay. Then I said Canon Video ? He said I can't remember what I did yesterday, let alone what I suppose maybe just don't remember him on any level. Right? He doesn't remember him on any level. This is the most important piece of film in the history of mankind, according to Ray. And he doesn't remember this guy at all. Frank Salas knows nothing about this. What Frank Salas did was he duplicated VHS tapes for sale. That's all he ever did. Okay, so he has no knowledge of editing anything into anything, and so still we don't know where this real film is. Now let's just move on from that to one other pertinent point. If, as you say, there was original film at one point and Ray had it in his possession before he was in any way intercepted by the Men in Black, okay, or whoever we're talking about, if he had this film at that point in time, why didn't he show it to anybody?
Well, you mean the actual canisters, you mean? Or are you
the actual film? He didn't have it tested. He didn't have it shown. Nobody saw any real film at all.
So you're saying that Frank Salas was... Have you talked to Frank Salas?
Yes, I have. Frank Salas that knows nothing about this. All he ever did was duplicate VHS copies for sale. What Ray did?
So Ray
went along with a master and said, "Could you make me 300 copies of this, please?"
From 16mm.
No, from Beta SP. And the Beta SP, by the way, came from me. It had my Waterfall Studios label on it.
But that's not what it says on Philip's transcript that he sent to me.
Well, what do you think Frank Salas did?
Well, he worked. Did he supposed to work for Canon, wasn't he?
Canon Video is a duplication house.
Yeah, and it's claimed that he transferred 16mm video.
Yeah,
video.
He didn't.
And that's,
he didn't
you say that, but where's your evidence?
Well, okay. I'll take your point.
Well, if he's not here to defend himself, maybe we could. If you
okay, that's fine. I've done my research, but what I'd like you to do, and maybe the listeners that are listening into this as well, maybe they can find out what Frank Salas did as well, because he'll tell them. Okay. What do you think he did, Ray? Phil?
Well, what I would do with Ray is probe him every now and again. Not literally.
Not.
Freudian slip there. But no, I would ask him questions and see if I could get some information from him. And he'd already said in the early days that the film was transferred by, I forget whom, and that was proven to be bogus. So I asked him again, who transferred the film onto video for you? And he said it was Frank Salas at Canon Video. And I said, well, can I speak to him? So I literally phoned Frank Salas up. He wouldn't speak to me to begin with until he got permission from Ray. I believe Ray either phoned him or faxed him. Yeah, we still had fax machines in those days. We're going back a bit.
Yeah.
And Frank told me that he did transfer 16mm film onto video.
Did he tell you what was on that film?
I pressed him. I also pressed him about the state of the film. Was it damaged? Because Ray had already said that some of the sprocket holes were damaged and so on, and I just thought, well, if you're transferring it on a machine, then it would have to be treated with care if it was in a fragile state. And Frank Salas, I believe, wouldn't comment on the age or the condition of the film. I got the impression he was being a bit cagey, but that could have been something because he was protecting a client's confidentiality. I'm not suggesting anything else. I can't prove anything else. All I showed Colin the transcript a few years back now, I believe.
Yeah, I've got it. I'll post it actually on my.
Yeah, there's no secret about it, but that's what he claimed. Frank Salas claimed he transferred 16mm film onto video.
Okay, I know what that is. If that's what he says, because there was a number of bits of footage that were bought which had nothing to do with the Alien Autopsy, which was 1947 footage of President Truman and various other newsreel, Pathé News, that sort of thing. In fact, I've still got the reels. And if that's what he duplicated, then that would fit the
There's one
description.
thing, can I just interject here as well?
Yeah.
One of the things you were saying, Spyros,
Yes.
is that why didn't Ray Santilli show any of the original film to anyone?
Yeah.
I have literally been sat in his office with alleged film canisters behind his desk, trying every which way I could to persuade him to let me have a look at the original film. He
Yeah.
claimed he had it there in his office. And I said, I don't need to touch it. I don't need to breathe on it. I just want to look at it and confirm that it is actually real. And he wouldn't show me it.
Okay, can I just interject there, gentlemen? Colin, I think you wanted to make a point just a few seconds ago. Do you want to come back to that?
Just because I had the notes from Frank Salazar, and he was in no doubt that it was indeed 16mm film and of the Alien Autopsy, so it wasn't as Spyros says.
Well, no, he did do what I just said. He might have done a transfer of a different film, but the VHS, what Canon Video do, they're a duplication house. They're not an editing facility. And what my point is, regardless of what's on record of what he's done is duplicate, which is what he does. But what he didn't do, and this is my point, he did not insert real frames within a bogus film.
Oh yeah, well I'm not arguing with that because I think that was just a cover story.
So can we let the record show that that part of the story that Ray Santilli has put across is also fake? Yes.
Yes. What absolutely. I mean, what I would say at this stage, gentlemen, is we'll deal with evidence. Ray Santilli, leave him out of it for the moment because he's not here to debate it. It's between your two different viewpoints. Now, Colin, you've made a number of claims that have been clarified here by Spyros that for some reason he's been paid by whoever to perpetrate this false story. What I would say is, what evidence do you have to support your claims? And I'm not talking about you've spoken to people. I'm talking about evidence that can be viewed, can be double-checked by anyone listening to this show tonight. For example, Spyros has just made a claim about Canon Video. They're on the record. The gentleman's name is on the record. So anybody, yourself included, who doesn't believe what Spyros has just said, can approach Canon Video and double-check that. You made a statement that, in your opinion, Spyros is lying or is being paid to perpetuate a lie by unknown agencies. What evidence have you got to support this?
Well, the number of things. I mean, I'd go back to Reg Presley's account in his book, Wild Things They Don't Tell Us, because he was closer, I guess, than most people to Ray Santilli. I mean, I don't know how close. I don't actually think that Spyros is that close to.
Did you ever meet Reg Presley?
A couple of times, but it wasn't at the time when I was.
I've worked with Reg. Okay. And I got the job through Ray. Funny enough. I filmed the Trogs at a Butlins camp, holiday camp, and we spoke at great detail. And Reg, being a wonderful, lovely man, believed, rest his soul, in aliens and crop circles and everything that you throw at him. He believed it, everything that you throw at him. Okay, and he was telling me in Butlins over coffee that the tent footage was real, and he had no doubt about that it was real. Okay, so as I say, I don't want to speak ill of anybody. So I love the man, right? I'm telling you, he was misguided, and anything that he said in his book must be taken with a pinch of salt. He went on television touting the tent footage. Okay.
Yes, he did.
We mustn't lose sight of that. Okay.
Carry on.
Okay.
Carry on.
Okay.
Colin.
What I want? Yeah. If Colin can carry on, please, with the points you wanted to raise, please, Colin.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, just for people who don't know, and I think it's an interesting little bit. Reg actually warned Ray to make more than one copy of the footage. This might explain why also Phillip didn't have access to the canisters. Maybe, I think at the time that Ray would have been very paranoid, and he would have it in secure locations, and it wouldn't be something that maybe this is what explains why these burglaries were happening, and they couldn't actually get hold of the actual footage. I actually think in the end they did get hold of it. They confiscated it, whether it was whether they actually said they were from the military or it was just like a black op where people went in there and like took the canisters and. He had to explain.
That's not true, though, Colin. That didn't happen.
Colin.
Well, I'm just suggesting. But
but it didn't happen. You're saying it like it happened. It didn't happen. It's not fact.
What I will say to both gentlemen, is at the time when the Alien Autopsy film hit the headlines, before it was seen on TV, it was the first UFO war for online. It was the infancy of the internet. I mean, it went crazy. And all kinds of things and attempts were made to get their hands on the footage. Because nobody, apart from a small selection of us, had seen anything. And Ray was bombarded by UFO researchers, some with good intentions, some not, by the media. So it would not have surprised me if some stupid bugger didn't try to get into Ray's office facilities, because they were made known. It wasn't a secret. For example, I'm in there one day with my wife, and a film crew just turned up on the doorstep demanding an interview. They hadn't booked anything, and they actually filmed myself and Ray and my wife walking down the road to the Chinese restaurant. That was all they got. So he was under siege almost. He brought it on himself, but he was under siege. What I'm saying, Colin, is you've made a direct accusation that Spyros is being paid to tell a lie here.
I'm not.
No, you are. You're telling.
Yeah, no, I am. I am. Sorry.
All right, gentlemen. Let's keep it nice, please.
Not just him, though. I mean, also other, Gareth Watson, Greg.
Others are not in this interview. Others are not on here tonight to defend themselves. This is about yourself and your position, and Spyros and his position. I'm asking you, like I would ask anybody, like I asked Ray Tilly. When Ray made these claims, it was a simple thing to say, well, that's a great story, Ray. Show me. And initially, he either couldn't or wouldn't, but eventually he did. So I'm saying to you, what evidence have you got that Spyros Milaris is being paid by some government agency to perpetrate a lie? Not what it says in somebody's book, what we and the listeners can go out and double check tomorrow.
Well, first I would say that because reverse that back at Spyros and say what evidence has he got?
I'm coming to that. I'm going to come to that in a moment. I'm going to ask Spyros the same thing. I'm not speaking to Spyros at the moment. I'm asking yourself. It's your turn to give our listeners an idea of the evidence that you have to support your statement.
Okay. Well, two of the main things that hint for me that it's basically covered up. With the team of people that Spyros was supposedly in charge was what we actually see in the film itself. So I'm referring to the guy in the window behind the autopsy table, supposedly Gareth Watson, and someone who was introduced, I believe. And this actually leads into a question for you, Philip, about Gareth Watson and when you actually first met that character, and also Greg Simmons, who Spyros has said is actually the soldier who holds up the debris footage. And these are two things, and I said this time and time again to I'm Blue in the Face on my book about, what makes you so convinced that there is, that it was a real film. It's basically because the people they brought forward, who are supposedly you see in the film, albeit Greg with his hands holding the panels and the I-beams.
Have you met Greg?
I've not met Greg, no.
So you don't know it's not his hands, right?
Well, I know, but then we wouldn't be having this conversation if we had seen his hands,
I'm just setting the record straight. I'm just setting the record. Because you're saying that it isn't Greg because of his hands, but you haven't actually seen his hands. I just want to make the point that you're not making a statement of fact here. You're just making a statement of.
I would also say, why have you taken 11 years to show his hands?
Well, no. Let's stick with your evidence for the time being, Colin.
Okay,
I'll answer your question.
And the other one about Gareth Watson. I mean, clearly, if you look at the photos of him, and when he was recorded on that Eamon Investigates, he was like, I don't know, mid-30s or something, possibly. He doesn't, and yet obviously this was filmed 11 years ago, if we believe it, in a flat in Camden. And if you actually look at the guy, it just doesn't match with him. It's not. He would have been far too young to be who that person is in the viewing window in the surgical mask. So,
well, I don't think, I don't think this. I mean, I know I've met Gareth. I met him in Ray's office in the very early days.
What year was that? You're talking 95?
1995, because that was the first time I ever went there. And he was there on a regular basis, and he worked with Gary Shoefield a lot. I mean, I've literally seen him boxing, videotapes up. I think they did something with Doctor Who once. I know there was a lot of Doctor Who videos in the office, piles of them. So it was something they were involved in. So I met him very on, and to be honest, Colin, he wasn't that much younger than myself, so he certainly was old enough, in my opinion. And in my opinion, that is Gareth. It looks like him to me. I don't have any doubt about that. I haven't met Greg Simmons, so for all I know, he could have no hands. I've never met the fella, so I can't comment.
So getting back to the original question, though, let's just get to that, because we're running out of time. So what's the evidence, Colin? Let's just finish that bit off.
Yeah. Well, your lack of evidence, I would say the first one. I can't
but that's
say.
Not the answer to the question, is it? It's not the answer.
Well, no, I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm just saying.
All right.
All right. None of your stories that you've come out with, I think I just.
But that's what we're here for. We're here to.
Well, no, but all your evidence is circumstantial. It's all.
No, that's not fair. That's not fair. Let's actually ask definite questions and get definite answers. That's what we're here for. So let's not talk about.
What I will say to you is, you've had your chance to put your evidence forward, Colin. Now it's Spyros' turn.
Okay.
Now, when I first interviewed Spyros didn't contact me direct. He first spoke to Russell Callahan. And Russell said, Philip, I think you got your mobile number, if I'm correct, Spyros.
Yeah. You know why I called him, Philip? Do you remember?
Yes, I do. You'd seen, you were checking stuff online, and myself and Russell, mainly Russell, had made a little DVD called Alien Autopsy, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I think that's the title of it. And you were contacting him with something about that. And
I was contacting him because he was using my copyright. I wanted to know why he was making this film. That's not.
Well, of course, as soon as he said, you think you ought to speak to this gentleman, we already had your first name, Spyros, and then he says Malaris. Now, when I spoke to you, as I spoke to Ray, Colin keeps saying, I can't understand why you believe Spyros. And I said, well, I don't believe him. What I did say to you, as I've said to all the others, is, okay, I don't disbelieve you. I keep an open mind. Show me. You're making these claims, Mr. Malaris. Show me. And what happened?
I showed you.
Exactly. So I'll tell you what happened, Colin. Over a period of conversations, I was with my wife, went to his house, and you could see that Spyros, although I don't think he makes this that well known, is also a good artist, because there were paintings that he had done personally on the wall, and he showed me not all of his evidence, I'm going to admit that, but a large proportion of it. Most of it, I believe, was still in boxes. And this included his diary, which I mentioned earlier on, and there was meetings with Ray Santilli or whoever, all noted. There were original faxes from Kodak detailing the edge codes that would be known for the various years. There was also a huge I believe it was a box full, but you correct me if I'm wrong. It might have been an index file, a big file of military vehicles.
That's right. Yeah.
And Spyros explained to me that at one point they were talking about building a crash flying saucer and having a military vehicle in it. And Spyros even showed me a photograph of the vehicle they were going to reproduce, because on that photograph you could clearly read the number plate. So if you went and checked in military records, you would find that such a vehicle did exist. And I believe it was going to be at an abandoned go-kart stadium.
The go-kart, yeah, in Wembley.
Yeah.
And my brother was live cast, so we would make President Truman look alike out of Peter. So he would be in the scene, and
Yes.
Ray was telling people he had this footage. Okay.
Yeah, and Spyros also played to me a couple of tape-recorded conversations with people that were involved. These weren't secret tapes. At the beginning, Spyros announced and asked permission if he could record the conversation, and permission was granted. And those involved openly admitted that the film was a fake. They used stronger words than that. I'll not use anything stronger than that tonight. But and these were principal players in it, Colin. They weren't.
When was it recorded?
I can tell you it was recorded prior to when I met Spyros. I don't have the exact date. The date of the recording would probably be on there. You can't prove when it was.
Yeah,
Let me finish. I could pull out a cassette tonight and say I've got an interview here, and on it I can write any date I want. I can't prove when it was recorded. All I'm saying is that the people involved.
I believe he has got these tapes. I just think that it was done probably after 2006. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Shall we move on to some facts, some actual evidence? Because that's what you want, isn't it? That's what you want, isn't it, Colin? Some actual evidence.
We've been waiting 20. What was it?
No, but you're going to wait.
Years.
You're going to wait for a lot of the stuff you want. But I'm going to give you some stuff that's already out there, and I want you to.
Right, guys. Just to let you know, we've got about 48 minutes left.
Yeah,
so
that's why I'm eager. I'm eager to actually get to some nitty gritty. Okay, Colin, are you in agreement that you were unable to find another example of the autopsy table within the film that I made?
Well, I wasn't looking too hard, but I didn't find anything.
Why would you not look too hard? You're an investigator of an important subject. You're here to tell me that I'm wrong. Why would you not take that challenge?
Well, you think I'm going to find an autopsy table set up at a military lab in Dallas-Fort Worth in 1947. It's going to be on Google, is it?
Well, let me explain to you how these things work, because I think I can safely say this, and people that are listening can obviously later come in and tell me I'm wrong. Okay, but I'm going to put it on record.
I can tell you
what happens when you make an item such as an autopsy table. A manufacturer tools up for that. Okay, the factory doesn't just make one. Okay, they tool up and they make a specific model, and they put it in a catalogue. And people that are in the business of buying autopsy tables, hospitals and what have you, would buy those marketed items, because you couldn't just make one. It wouldn't make sense to make one. Okay, so. That's what would have happened. They would have bought one, and that would have been used for lots of autopsies. It wouldn't be used for one and then throw it away, okay, because it's an installation. So I think it's fair to say that there would be a wealth of other photos, videos.
It was an unusual autopsy. It wasn't a human autopsy, though, was it?
But so you're saying that they made a table specially for a body they had no knowledge of?
Why not?
Okay, because it's
they had already done the first autopsy.
It's not sensible. That's why not. But okay, I'll let you have that for the time being. Okay, are you familiar with a legal term called the law of probability? This is important, by the way. I'm not just okay.
Carry on.
In a court of law, okay, if somebody that was in the witness stand said something which was improbable. Okay, the judge wouldn't take it into consideration. But if it was probable, it would weight heavily towards the finding of a guilty or not guilty. Okay. For example, if you're in court and I said to you, I posted you a letter and it's recorded delivery, okay, and you say I didn't receive it, okay, the judge would say, okay, well, it's been recorded delivery, so the probability of it arriving is high. So we've got to accept that you got the letter, Mr. Woolford. Whether you opened it or not is irrelevant. The probability of you receiving it is pretty high, so we're going to accept it that you have received it, regardless of the fact that you say you didn't have it. Okay? That's how a court would work. Okay? So in this situation, what I'm saying to you is, let's look at the probability, okay, of them making a special autopsy table for aliens. Okay, let's leave that there. Okay, I don't know the answer to that. All I'm telling you is that table does not exist anywhere else in the world other than my film. And the reason I know that is it's my design and I made it.
I don't believe that.
No, that's fine. You don't have to believe me, but let that stay there on the evidence so far that you did not find it anywhere else.
I mean, the probability of a UFO crash, I would say, is quite small, but it doesn't mean to say it hasn't.
Yeah, but nobody has to make that UFO. You with me? It's a one-off instance. An alien autopsy is one thing, but an autopsy table is a common thing. Okay? So it's a facility. It's something that would have been in that institution before the alien came along. If you can't see that, then that's okay. We'll go to the next.
But it was claimed to have been set up. But,
the room was set up, was it? Especially.
Yeah, within the month, because the being apparently died within the month of the crash. So it would have been set up in the 4 weeks, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. So my contention is this. Okay, I'm saying that I issued a statement which said, it's on my website still. And I said that no one will be able to find this table, regardless of where they look. Now, if this table was genuine, I would have exposed myself ridiculously, wouldn't I? It would be a silly thing to say. So the probability of me knowing that you're never going to find another table like that, it was pretty high, right? Is that true? I was very confident that you were not going to find that table.
I've looked and I can't find it.
Right, let's move on to the next thing. Okay, I also issued a challenge that the suits within the film don't exist anywhere because I designed those too. So,
well, again, we're not going to find this on eBay, are we?
Why would you say eBay? Because that sounds like a joke.
Well, can I just interject there? What I will say is that the items that are seen on the film, from the suits to the microphone, clock on the wall, the telephone, everything by countless people has been researched and looked into from day one, and nothing is out of place. What I will say is that one of the TV shows at the time that took a negative stance against the film Spyros was one called Sightings, made in America.
Yes.
And they were of no doubt that the Alien Autopsy film was a hoax. They were even at the launch of it in our conference in Sheffield. They aired a section on their show saying that there were two things that were wrong with it, amongst others. One was that it should be filmed in colour, and then they showed a military autopsy film, an official US military autopsy film. Guess what? It was in black and white. So they made a mistake there, and all the surgeons in the room were wearing, of course, your regular surgical equipment. And the alien, the autopsy table and everything else, and it was standard issue. So when it comes to looking for something that's out of place, you know, nobody has found it, and that includes your table. Yes,
well, because I designed it to work. It actually worked. Yeah, but it didn't exist anywhere else. That's my point. It's a machined item. Okay, I made it by hand. And here's another thing. We haven't found this table anywhere in the world. and we haven't found the suits anywhere else in the world. Is that correct?
Correct, and I've looked.
Okay, Colin, have you looked?
I've done what I can. But,
but you haven't found them.
Yeah. But remember, the internet, when this all came out in '95, there wasn't a lot of stuff. The internet was just starting then. So what I'm saying is that if there was any film footage, then anything that would validate the Alien Autopsy would probably be removed online or whatever, basically.
Of course, so, that fits your story, but it doesn't actually.
No, because
that's a fair point, though.
No, it's not a fair point, because we did find. No, Colin, let me finish. We did find evidence that did tend to support the possible reality of the film, and that was the alleged film that was used, the Super XX, and the fact that
let
me finish. In 1947, there was a shortage of colour film because there'd been an embargo on public use of it until after the end of the war. So we found that the correct film to use in filming such a situation was this Super XX. This was found in the Kodak archives. So to say you couldn't find something in 1995 that would support what people were looking at is incorrect, because we did. Similarly with the telephone. As soon as the film was shown at the London Business School, the following day, it was confirmed as being authentic, albeit the curly flex was an additional extra. And of course, there was no internet to remove things then. That was actually at a museum. So information was there and still is there. So sorry for interrupting.
Okay, here's another thing I'd like to ask you as well. Are you familiar? When I know what you're going to say with regards to it, but the important thrust of the question I'm going to ask you is what Santilli did. Okay, are you familiar that I issued a statement to the Express newspaper, the Daily Express, and I said, because they were talking about the alien autopsy and Ray saying it was real, and I said, would you like to do a lie detector test, a 3-phase lie detector test with me, Ray, Greg, and anyone else you'd like to put in? I asked Greg whether he would do it, and he said yes. Okay, so I know from my team I would have got Greg and myself. I said we would invite John, but we're not sure whether John would do it because he was already in Santilli's pocket. So Santilli agreed to do it. I then spoke to the reporter of the newspaper. Phillip was copied in the emails, and I said to him, he won't do this. It's all bravado. He'll say yes. You're going to print that he said yes, he'll do it, and then he just won't do it. And sure enough, it died. I then wrote another email, and I said, could you please tell me what's happening here? Because we want to get it done. We want to do it. And Ray wrote back and said, I'm sorry, I'm busy running a business, and I'll get round to it. Of course, it hasn't happened. Now, I'm the only one that was proactive in wanting to sit down and have a 3-phase lie detector test. I don't know if you know what that is, but a 3-phase lie detector test is not the one that you would believe can be beaten. Okay, what it does is they link it up to thought patterns, so brain pattern activity. They link it up to heart activity, and they link it up to your sweat glands. So sweating, heartbeat, and brain activity. Okay, you cannot con it, you can't fool it, you can't beat it. It's the latest thing. I put myself up for it, and Santilli did not turn up.
Yeah, can I just remind you of something as well, Spyros?
Yeah.
A few years back, I don't know if Chris or Colin are aware of this. I only recently reminded myself of it. It was one of the producers of the Jeremy Kyle show.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I contacted him, not you. It was my idea.
Yes.
And I proposed a Jeremy Kyle show like no other. And that the protagonists weren't whether you've had my child or you've had an affair with so-and-so. It would actually be, is this film real? We're talking about the Alien Autopsy film. You'd have Santilli on one side and you on the other saying, no, I made it.
Yes, I remember it well. Yes.
And as part of that discussion, both you and Santilli were to take lie detector tests. And then Santilli was all for this, no problem, Philip. Then I put one little rider in there that Ray supplied the TV company with a piece of the film with image on it that they would have independently tested for its age, and at the end of the show it would be like, the DNA test, is it your son or not, is it real or not? So you've both had your lie detector test, the results of that are being revealed, and who's telling the truth? As soon as you mentioned about testing the film, guess what, he lost interest.
But not only that, Phil, he didn't, even when he got rid of that aspect of it, because let's suppose that Colin is right and it was taken away. Okay, let's go with that for a minute. Let's say they confiscated the film so he can't produce it anymore. Why would he not take a lie detector test now? Just a lie detector test.
Well,
he said he would.
On that point, a few years back, I had a Russian film crew here, and from here they went to interview Ray Santilli, and he took him to his store and he showed them frames of the Alien Autopsy, and he has some behind a piece of plastic or some kind of clear material, which I've held in my own hands. Yeah. So for him to say that he doesn't have it, he does. He's got some.
Well, what he's got is footage that I shot on 16mm, and the reason it's in plastic is so that no one can test it.
Well, okay. Should have gone off.
He's had it cast in resin so that nobody can get to it.
Yeah, but he did also show the Russian film crew film, held out between his hands from a spool.
Yeah, when he said he didn't have any.
Yes.
Yeah, and he didn't let anybody take it away. So it's bravado. It's all show. Okay.
Okay, right. So what I want to do now, guys, is I think Colin's got one or two more questions that he does want to ask.
Let's go.
Round about something to do with the danger sign and destruction of evidence. So I'm going to ask Colin in again now, Colin, if you'd like to put them points forward, please.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Spyros is supposedly, or either him or someone else is writing a book about the Alien Autopsy. And I think when I first actually contacted Spyros, I did ask him about the danger sign, and I think he said he was going to hold it back for his book. But I don't know if he's prepared now to talk about that, because I think it was seemed that the sign did say maximum working time, and I think it was possibly 2 hours, and I think there was a phone number underneath it. So I guess
no, it wasn't a phone. It wasn't a phone number. No.
No. So maybe you could reveal then.
It was a time limitation. You're absolutely right. It was a time limitation. Because we thought, you know what, if they're wearing these suits and there's a contamination problem, nobody should be there for any longer than a certain time. We got that because we kind of looked at X-rays and thought, you know what, when you're doing X-rays, no matter how much you stand behind the lead curtain, you're not allowed to do more than X amount a day. And I just went along with that because it rang true. It rang like it was a correct thing to do. But bear in mind, I was making it up as I went along. I'm not a medical person. I don't know.
What was the bit underneath that piece of writing? Because there was a bit more.
I can't recall. I can't recall. Really? I made that sign, and as it happens, it's been proven since then that it was actually the wrong dating for that sign to be there. Did you know that?
Sure.
Did you know that layout of sign wasn't around in 47, and I made a mistake there.
So you made the sign, but you
absolutely,
what was written on it?
I made it in Corel.
Let the record show that you don't know what was written on it then.
No, you know what, I can't remember, because it wasn't important to me. Do you understand that
really?
That was such a silly little thing on that wall? It wasn't a big deal. I can't remember a lot of the things. It's 23 years ago.
Well, I'm quite shocked at that.
Now, I have actually got the computer that I edited the whole thing on, and it might be on those hard drives, and I'm now going through those hard drives because it's Windows 95. You can imagine, right? I can't get it to work on anything, so I'm trying to get the hard drive to work now.
Well, that sort of leads on to the idea that you wouldn't be having this conversation if you didn't actually keep some of this evidence that was in the operating theatre.
I have got quite a lot of stuff, which is for example, there is one of the suits that I mentioned does exist. Okay, does exist. So a physical version of that suit, the one I was actually wearing, because I had the same suit on. When I was filming it, I was in the same suit as everyone else. Now, here's another thing. Let me ask you another question about the suits, because it's very important. Did you realise that you can't see the feet in any of the footage?
Probably, yeah, but yeah.
Did you notice that? Okay. The only way that they were breathing, if they were sealed suits, was if there was an air pipe to the boot.
Yeah, and I've had this conversation with you before, but...
Yeah, but this is for the record here. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So there must be a pipe going to the boot. Now, do you understand that an aerated, a pressurized suit would not be flexible? It would be full of air. Is that fair?
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. I now would ask you, and you're not going to do it now, but I would ask everyone to look at the footage and just concentrate on the helmets of the people in the room. Don't worry about this.
I've seen that. I've seen it expanding.
You've seen it going up and down.
Of course.
It's not pressurized, is it?
Yeah, but what you seem... I mean, I did ask a question, because the actual... I know you claimed that the interview with the cameraman was... this bum you got off the streets in
completely
LA
my work. Yes, absolutely.
But he does actually say, regardless of what you say, actually he does refer to this air vents and coming up in the feet. So I was a little surprised when you seem to not realise that, considering...
You know that whole thing was written by Santilli. Like, all the questions were either
the cameraman's statement was. Also.
Yeah, absolutely, all of it. Now, I've got a theory that Ray did meet a military guy who was in Roswell in 1947. I don't think this guy filmed an alien autopsy, but I do believe this guy was there, because a lot of the information, the detail, came from somebody. Okay, sure. But the autopsy stuff, all of that stuff about it, there being freaks and holding the boxes are the control panels that I made from my imagination. Okay.
Sure it was.
Is it okay? Okay. No, it's okay. Challenge me, because I would challenge you too.
Actually, just go back to briefly. Can I just go back to the disruption of the evidence of the bodies of the aliens?
Yeah, I don't get. Yeah.
So what the question I might want to know is, can you tell us the process of how these bodies were destroyed and who was there when they were destroyed?
Can I just say something? The way I see it, Colin, is if Spyros said, well, you know what, we found one of the legs in the cellar, or one of the arms, or whatever, you would turn around and say, well, has it got a date on it? You could have made that yesterday,
Yeah. But that's not. It's irrelevant. Yeah, it's irrelevant. It's very important about what I just said about the control panels, Colin. Okay. Have you seen in your investigations anywhere in the history of time ever anyone mention or describe those control panels?
Yeah, it was in your documentary you made for Santa.
Thank you. But anywhere in time before me? Because I'm the common denominator here.
I think it's in Michael Hessman's book, Beyond Roswell.
And what did he say? He saw my film and he reported on it, yes?
Well, if you believe it's your film... then
I'm talking about before then. This happened in 1947. So
Sure.
If it happened in 1947, between 47 and 1995, why has there been no mention at all of six-fingered control panels?
But there has been when the footage was shown.
But that's after I made it. Jesse Marcel talked about debris. Not once did he mention a six-fingered control panel.
Well, established this isn't the Roswell crash, so...
Okay. Tell me who has mentioned a six-fingered control panel ever in the history of time before 1995.
Well, there was someone I don't know about six-fingered one, but there certainly is a five-fingered people working on it that you can see a photo of in Beyond
in
Roswell.
1995, yes?
Whenever that book came out, well, Phillip would probably know more than me, but I think
was
maybe 96.
1995, and it was a guy, it was a data hand panel, and they basically were working on a similar idea, but nobody showed them it. They haven't seen it anywhere else. They didn't see an alien six-fingered control panel. Nobody in the military who was there has ever reported a six-fingered control panel, ever.
Because technology is seeded and given to corporations to.
But they mentioned the I-beams, and they mentioned the bendy metal that comes out, and all that is technology that would have been held back too. But they didn't hold that back. They just chose to pick something that I made in 1995, because there's no evidence that it existed before I made it. If my claim is that I made it in 1995, your rebuttal must be, but Jesse Marcel saw it in 1947. Surely.
Or somebody else.
Yeah, but somebody who was there, because it cannot just be in my film. It cannot be.
And that's one of the things we did, Colin, right from day one, was the description of the creature, and everything in the film was look for supporting testimony elsewhere, because we weren't getting it from Santilli. Bearing in mind, at this point, Colin, I believe there was a strong chance the film was authentic. So I wasn't trying to debunk it. I was trying to prove that it was at least possible for this film to be real. I'm not saying real aliens, I'm just saying authentic footage of something. So we tried our damnedest to find supporting testimony, because the promises made to us by Santilli. I separately lined up Kodak in England to test the film. And I think where Kodak is located, I think the British film industry is nearby as well. And they were interested in taking an unbiased look at it. But we never got it.
Yeah,
I don't want to say anything.
Can I just interrupt there, please, Philip? You actually cut out on me there, so I'm presuming that's cut out on the recording. So could you just make the final point again?
Yeah. I genuinely believe this film could have a strong possibility at that point of being authentic, and I was trying to help prove that. And all the people that claim to have seen the six-fingered creatures all came out after the film was shown on television. None of them had gone on the record before. And these were people, some of them whom I interviewed in person as well, Colin. So it wasn't just online or anything like that. And similarly with the control panels, we can find no other UFO account that had these control panels. We've done similar things with other cases. For example, Colin, the Robert Taylor case in Livingston. We looked very hard. Not just, when I say we, I mean UFO researchers in general, including me, I'm Malcolm Robinson, to find something that looks similar to what Robert Taylor said he saw. And we've drawn a blank. We did the same process with what was on the Alien Autopsy film. And as far as the control panels, an absolute zero. And that was at a time, Colin, when I was trying to prove this film to be authentic, nothing else. And we drew a complete blank.
Sorry, I'm very conscious that we're running out of time. We just need to get some solid stuff down. I don't want to be unfair to Colin, so I'm going to leave the Alien Autopsy film on the back burner for the time being. Okay, but I'm going to make a bold statement and say it cannot be any question, there cannot be any doubt that the debris footage is absolutely fake. And I'll explain why I say that. I have produced unaged footage of the same footage. I've produced footage that wasn't released. I have produced... the big question, of course, is why would Santilli release aged footage when clean footage existed? Okay. That doesn't make sense. And the last thing, of course, is the elements within that film. I'm Greek, right? Remember that probability thing I spoke about? The writing on the I-beams are based on Greek. Okay, there's a very heavy number there. It points a big finger. The other thing is, you said at one point, Colin, that I got what it said on the I-beams from the gentleman in my film who deciphered it from the University of London. Okay. Do you realise I was behind the camera in that film?
Oh yeah, I actually contacted him a few months ago.
And do you realise that I fed him pointers?
Well, you claim to.
Well, okay. I was there filming it. Okay. I'm there. I'm telling you, I'm the only person he couldn't decipher the small I-beam. And I'm the only person, after issuing a challenge on the internet, and I said, anyone please tell me what this says. Nobody came forward. I've deciphered it as ISIS because I wrote it. And nobody has ever come forward and said, that's not true. It's not right. It does read ISIS, by the way. Okay. I'm the only one that knew that. So does that not...
Yeah.
Unaged.
It wasn't you saying this, though, in the documentary, was it?
Sorry, say again?
It wasn't you saying that in the documentary.
But you do realise I was making a fake documentary to back up my fake film. So
wow.
I couldn't be seen in it. You understand that, don't you?
You think you would put an Easter egg in there or something where it would prove it later? A bit like
I did. And the big Easter egg is that the writing on that I-beam is Greek. It's based on Greek, right? The big thing is that the six-fingered panels don't exist anywhere else. I have unaged footage. I have unedited footage, okay? And no one else has.
Yeah, well, that just reinforces what I said in my statement at the beginning.
What, that it's real, yes?
But it's real, and the people, you're being fed information and materials from the people who you're, I guess, speaking on behalf of.
Okay, so Ray Santilli was sent footage which was aged by the cameraman. Is that the story?
I don't believe that. I think that was genuine footage that he retrieved, and what you're showing.
Absolutely. So you believe that he got the footage from somebody who shot the footage?
Mm-hmm.
And that footage was aged, and somehow,
the original 47.
Yeah. So that footage was aged. The identical footage, frame by frame, was aged, and it came from the source. And you're saying that somehow that my handlers have given me unaged footage that the person that supposedly shot it and gave it to Ray didn't have. That's your testimony, is it?
I believe that the people that he obviously no longer has the footage, and they can improve the quality of that footage.
Okay, good. That's good. We're getting somewhere. So, are you saying we can now give the aged footage to anyone in the world on this planet, including NASA, and they can clean it up to the image that I've got?
I would say the military, possibly. I don't know about NASA. I would have to.
Oh, NASA's not good enough for you. Okay.
No.
Anyone you like. Anyone, you pick anyone you like. I will pay for it. I will pay for it to be done. You find the person and you send the footage and I will physically pay the bill. Okay? If you think that's possible. Is that fair?
I just don't think that whatever.
No, you can't backtrack. It either can be done or it can't be done. If it's aged footage...
Be done. No, it can be done, yeah.
It can't be done. I'm telling you unequivocally, it cannot be done. I've been in film for I don't know how old you are, Colin, but I'm probably, I've been in film a long, long time, over 42 years, right? I'm telling you, it cannot be done. And I'll put that out there now. Anyone that's listening, right? Steven Spielberg, if you're listening, please come and make this happen. Okay,
but you're not aware of, like the claims of military having technologies 50, 30 years in advance.
Do you understand it can't be done? You cannot bring image back that isn't there. It's physically impossible. If there is a washed out area of film, there's no information. So you can't bring that information back. It doesn't exist. Okay, so you can make it look better, but the footage that I've got has got detail. You can see the stitching in the suits. You can see detail. You can see the wood grain, right? It's detail. So I'm saying to you, it cannot be done, and the challenge is there. If you want to take the challenge, I will pay for it. You won't be out of pocket. Okay, you can choose who's going to re-look at it, and I will pay for it. And
right.
So.
Right, gentlemen, we've got about 15 minutes left. What I wanted to do is, I'm going to offer you both the opportunity just to make a closing statement more than anything else. And I know this wasn't, I didn't actually pre-warn you about this, but I think it's been a very interesting discussion, personally speaking, and I've quite enjoyed listening to both points of view, to be quite honest.
No, Chris,
it has answered one or two things for me.
Tell
Go
him
ahead,
the
Phil.
truth. Spielberg's just been on the phone. He does listen on a regular basis, and he said, well, let's have a roundup from these two guys, because it's been fascinating. Come on.
Yeah. This is, I've actually really enjoyed listening to this. It's been absolutely brilliant. And me and Mr. Spielberg, I have to call him Mr. because his film is Hollywood royalty, you know. So I have to call him Mr. But I've really, he's been on the phone with me, yes, and he does want to help. But, you know, in all honesty, I've actually really enjoyed listening to this, and I found the whole conversation very fascinating. And, you know, but I want to offer you now, gentlemen, just, 5 minutes just to put a last perspective across to us. And what I'm going to do this time, I'm going to reverse the original order. I'm going to let Spyros go first.
Okay.
And then, of course, Colin, I'll give you a few minutes to think about what you want to say as well. Okay, gentlemen, if you want to go ahead then, Spyros.
Yes, I will. I would like to state here and now that Ray Santilli did register a copyright of a film called The Alien Autopsy and the registration was in 1995. The date of the film that he registered is supposedly 1947. The cameraman is listed as unknown, and it said that the film was made in Italy, okay, not in America. I contacted the copyright office and I said, this is my film. Can you please show me the film that you have logged within your archive as per the 1947 film? They sent me a copy which was identical to the film I made. I then had to prove to them that the film was mine. It took me 18 months. It cost me a lot of money with lawyers. And I have now got a registration of my copyright, which is, it lists The Alien Autopsy. It's got my name, Spyros Molaris, the entire motion picture, and it says made in United Kingdom. The registration number is PA2-107-881. Anyone wants to check that out, that's lodged with the US Library of Congress in the Copyright Office. They also hold a copy of the film that I hold the copyright to. Mr. Santilli didn't register any other film than the one that I made. Okay. Now, I would like to close by saying we've established today that Mr. Santilli is capable of creating a fake, and he did that with the 10 footage, and he's capable of selling such a fake. We've also established that the autopsy table in the film is nowhere else in the world. It doesn't exist anywhere in the world. We've established the suits are also nowhere else to be seen in the world. Everyone that I've said who was involved, John Humphreys and Ray Santilli especially, have both accepted and put on record that I was the man who led the team that made the Alien Autopsy. If you were to go to IMDb, you will find that I have a wealth of credits, and a lot of them are on the Alien Autopsy. Fox Alien Autopsy, Fact or Fiction, credits me with the creation of the black and white footage. The Eamon Investigates film that Colin mentioned was executive produced by Ray Santilli. He made that program as a film to promote himself. In that film, if you check IMDb, I am credited with making of the black and white footage. If you look on IMDb, you'll find that I have several credits, including costume design, cinematographer, camera electrical, costume and wardrobe, visual effects, special effects, writer and producer, all on the Alien Autopsy. They don't just put this stuff up, because the person that makes the film can contest it. Okay? So it can be removed if you put it there. My declaration with the Copyright Office in America is a legally binding contract, i.e., I can be done for fraud if this is not true. I think you will find that with the help of Fox TV, that Miss Santilli is in hot water. And he's going to have to show how this film is a 1947 film. Lastly, to close, I would just like to say I was on the One Show last week, a couple of weeks ago, and Mr. Santilli issued a cease and desist letter to the BBC that they are not to show the 1947 or Alien Autopsy. And the BBC's lawyers wrote back to Mr. Santilli and said, please rest assured, we do not intend to show any of your 1947 film. We went ahead and showed my film, and Mr. Santilli has done nothing about it. Okay? Nothing. You would have thought he would be suing the BBC by now. I'm telling you unequivocally, the Alien Autopsy is fake, 100%. And so far, nothing that Colin has said has shown any evidence at all. The Men in Black and my handlers and all of that is just his idea of a good time. There is no evidence. Absolutely none.
Okay. Spyros, thank you very much for that. Very much appreciated for your time this evening.
My pleasure.
To do this.
My pleasure, Chris.
Colin, it's up to you now, Colin. Would you like to make a final statement, please?
Well, they hasn't changed my mind, I'm afraid. I'm still convinced that the Alien Autopsy footage is genuine. I'm looking at the IMDb myself just now at the Anton Deck film. I see it cost £5 million to produce that, and I just think, well, that's, and I think it got pretty slim return for that money.
You'd be surprised it made money.
Well, I'm just saying that, when they go to such efforts, when combined that with the documentary about Ray saying it was a recreation or whatever, it just stinks of a cover-up conspiracy. There's nothing that Spyros has said. I mean, I think the trouble is with Spyros is that he needs these other people to come forward. He needs this woman who was staying at this place in Rochester Square in Camden. He needs her to come forward, this genius who has ties to the government. He needs Greg to come forward. He needs Gareth to back him up, because while it's just him singing his version of the story, then it's not going to have that credibility with these other people backing him up. So that's one of the things I've always been, very suspicious of. And I don't think my page would still be running and people would have an interest on YouTube of the Alien Autopsy footage even now. And we didn't really get round to the first autopsy. And there's obviously room here for maybe another chat in the future. But I think it's been entertaining, this conversation. I do believe that Spyros is lying, and I wish him well. I don't wish him any malice or anything, but there's a mystery here, and the world's a changing place. I think there is greater truths coming to light now, and there's a lot of desperate people out there. I said this before, that people that could hide these secrets from the past, now things are changing, and let's just see what happens next year with regards to maybe with Spyros and his book, if that ever sees the light of day, and maybe more light being shown on not just the Alien Autopsy, because I think it covers the whole, subject of ufology, that we do seem to be getting a clearer understanding of how things are being manipulated and covered up. And I'll carry on in my little Facebook group there, and I'll wish everyone a good night.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. Thank you, Spyros. I mean, we've managed to keep it civil. I hope I didn't waffle too much in between. And there is no reason why we can't keep it civil. Even though I've been involved in this damn film from day one, I still find it fascinating. I still think that's the end of it. It's gone away, and something else rears its head. I don't think it will ever go away. It's firmly ingrained in popular culture, if nothing else. But I think it's been a fascinating couple of hours.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's for me personally, it's interesting to hear both points of view from people such as yourself, Colin, and from Spyros as well. And now I agree, perhaps we can organise something once again in the future and discuss this a little bit more. But, at the end of the day, it's what we're discussing, to me, are opinions, and opinions actually with some evidence to prove one thing or the other. Now, what I've actually really enjoyed was getting to hear Spyros' side of things and Colin's side of things. And once again, gentlemen, I just want to thank both of you and yourself, Phil, for taking time out this evening just to come and talk to us.
Don't say you're interested in my side of things.
No, well, I've got I keep forgetting your UFO royalty, so we have to listen to you anyway. So, Colin, thank you very much indeed for your time this evening.
Thanks for having me on, and
that's an absolute pleasure, and yourself as well, Spyros.
Thank you.
So that's it, gentlemen. I'd just like to. That's brilliant. I'd just like to thank you all. And what are you up to now, then, Phil? What you going to be doing tonight? The rest of the
I'm planning world domination next.
At that point, we'll close. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
bye.
The date, Saturday, the 17th of August 2019, and the venue will be the Pontefract Town Hall's Assembly Rooms. We have seating for 250 at ground level. This is a strictly limited number, so access is on a first-come, first-served basis. This fantastic venue is situated close to all three of Pontefract's railway stations, with Monkhill being the closest, literally a 10-minute walk away from the venue. Those travelling by car parking is less than a 5-minute walk from the venue, and it's currently charged at £4.50 all day. The Pontefract bus station is less than 2 minutes away from the venue, and Saturday is also Pontefract's market day with many facilities available. There is also many sandwich shops, fish and chip shops and other types of food available, all within a 5-minute walk of the venue, and Pontefract has good access to both the M1 and the M62. It is with honour and a little bit of excitement that Outer Limits magazine can now announce the speakers for its 2019 event. To host the event, working under the banner title of The Closest of Encounters, as always shall be Outer Limits magazine editor Chris Evers. He will present a talk on a subject relevant to the theme of the conference. Making his Outer Limits magazine conference debut shall be author and experiencer Phillip Kinsella, who shall discuss his own extremely close encounter event and personal experiences. Making his third appearance at an Outer Limits magazine event will be Paul Sinclair, to discuss more details of his investigation and findings. Outer Limits magazine associate editor Malcolm Robinson will be returning to discuss his new publication, all about the Bob Taylor close encounter, or as it's also known, the Decmont Woods incident. And it is with great honour that we announce our very special speaker making a trip to the United Kingdom from America, with what shall be his first ever visit to the UK, to present his own story in a public forum that shall be the only remaining witness to this famous Pascagoula abduction, Calvin Parker. Without a doubt, this will be a once-in-a-lifetime chance to meet and hear Calvin's most intriguing case, straight from the only surviving witness. Working alongside Outer Limits magazine is my co-host of the new Inside Outer Limits radio show, that's Philip Mantle, the publisher at Flying Disc Press, and Philip is no stranger to investigations himself. We are extremely grateful for Philip's continued support of Outer Limits magazine and our endeavours. Tickets for the day are priced at £20 each, plus a £1.80 PayPal fee, and are now available to order at chris0597.wixsite.com/outer-limits-mag. And remember, we have strictly limited seating available to a maximum 250. Since the announcement that tickets were available, they have already started selling, and very quickly. So don't miss out, get your tickets straight away.